What's going on, guys? Balkan Architect here, and in today's course, or this week's course, we're going to be continuing on working on our building from start to finish. So last week we left off at something like this. Now we added the columns here, so if I maybe go into 10 lines, so as you can see here we have our concrete elements in our walls. Same thing here, so in all of our walls we have these concrete elements. Also, we've played around with the sections, so if I go here to section 1, as you can see, we've added all of the detailing to the section. We've added a slope to the flat roof, so even though a roof should always be flat, or a flat roof is called flat roof, it shouldn't be flat. It should have some sort of slope for the water. So here we've added that slope, we've added all of the insulation. Also, with those vertical columns, now we have added even the horizontal beams. So as you can see, the beams are over here, and all of the concrete elements are kind of connected to each other. Here we have another of those structural framing elements or structural beams, concrete beams. Moving on, we've kind of finalized the foundation. If I turn off thin lines, it's going to look like that. So everything is flowing together. We have all of the concrete where it should be. And also this is just an in place or just a filled region, or just an annotation element that's supposed to represent all of the where the earth has been digged up, and then later on placed back once the foundation has been poured into place. Also, we play around here with this roof. We moved it up a bit. We've also played around with the graphics a little bit. Also created this lovely room diagram and played around with the labels. So we have labels that actually show the actual size of the room in meters and square meters, and also or the area of the room. And also we made these labels a bit smaller so they can fit in even the smaller rooms over here in the 1 to 100 scale. And also we've created this room legend over here on the side where you can actually see what is what room. So there we go. And also one more thing, we're going to be doing the ceiling here in the garage. So you need to have a ceiling in the garage, and we're going to be playing around with that reflected ceiling plan above the garage and the bathroom over here as well. Okay, so that's what this course is going to be all about, and I'm going to be covering that in the next hour of this advanced Revit course, where we take this building from a simple sketch all the way to this finished product that can be constructed in real life. Let's get started. Now it's time for us to do the sections, but before we get into that, there is just one thing about our floor plans that I would like to fix. So I'm going to go here to zero level floor plan, and here we have our regular floor plan. Now if I zoom in here to the window, if you look at this window, you can see the sill height is at 80 centimeters, and we can pretty much see the window as is, and it looks really good. But if I kind of go down just a little bit, you're going to notice that this here bathroom window, it has a sill height of 210, and it's kind of weird, looks a bit odd. Also, if I go to this window over here, and if I select it, it has a sill height also of 110, and also it looks kind of weird. That's because it's kind of showing you just part of the window, because it's kind of one of those options where the window is above our cut plane, so Revit represents it in a bit of a different way, and in this case it looks quite weird. So even though this plan this floor plan is supposed to be cut at 120, I think it's at 120. So if I go into VR to see the view range, our cut plane is, as you can see, at 120. So that's why we can see these windows okay, and these windows not so much. Now, if I were to change the cut plane to something higher, it's going to mess up the way I see these doors, for example. So if I go to maybe 220, I wouldn't see the doors. I would only see these windows, and it would mess up some of the other elements. So it would be ideal if I could set the view range only in certain areas to have that 210 height. And luckily, Revit has a tool for that. So if we go here to our View tab, here we have some options, and here we have plan views. And if I open up the drop menu for plan views, we have an option for a plan region. Now this allows you to change the view range properties for a certain region of your model. So what I'm going to do is just go here to plan region, select it, and now you can create a window where those elements that you want to view are. So I'm just going to turn off thin lines or turn on thin lines so we can see our actual wall, because I want to be really precise here. And I'm just going to do a window that kind of captures this this window over here and these three windows in the garage as well, and just finish over here. Now you can lock this window, as you can see, to the walls. So in that case, if I decide to change the walls at some point, it's going to be able to change those walls just by just because it's locked. So if I move the wall, this view region will move as well. And now I can hit finish, and as you can see, nothing changed. Well, that's because we didn't go into properties and change the properties. So once this view range is selected, and if you accidentally deselected it, you're going to notice that it has this green line. Maybe if we turn off 10 lines, you can see it a bit better. So there's this green dashed line, and you can either go to just to edit boundary, or you can go to view range, either here in the modify tab or here in the properties. So let's go just here in the modify tab, and here let's change it from 120 to 220. Okay, hit apply. Okay, and as you can see, we've got our windows, and they're actually displaying in the right way that you want to display them. Also, I have one more window over here, so I want to adjust this. I want to adjust this plan region, so I'm just going to go here into edit boundary, do just another rectangle. So the good thing is it doesn't have to be one closed loop, you can have multiple closed loops. So I'm just going to do another one over here. Let's just go here into 10 lines, just because it makes things easier to lock this to the walls. So I'm just going to lock it in place in these two sides, hit finish, and there we go. Now the window appears and it's a lot better than it was previously. Okay, so with using those plan regions, we now have a perfect view of all of our windows in our floor plan. Also, any other element where you kind of need to either make the view range or the cut plane higher or lower, you can just play around with these plan region views or plan regions, and you can change the actual view range properties in those sections. Okay, now it's time to go to our section, so let's go. First, let's talk what we actually need to see. So in my country, usually for all of our sections, you don't really need to show furniture in sections. Now, of course, in Revit, it's a byproduct of modeling everything in 3D, but actually people don't really like to see any furniture in sections, so I like to turn that off for all of my sections. So to do that, I'm just going to go to visibility graphics, either just by going here in the properties panel, or alternatively just type in VG. And now here, just make sure that you're on model categories, and then I'm just going to scroll down, find my furniture. Let's see. Okay, furniture, and just turn it off. Hit apply, okay, and there we go. Now, in this case, some of these elements did not turn off, and the reason for that is they're probably not classified as furniture. So this one is a generic model, also this family as well, this family, and this refrigerator over here. So I'm just going to select those and manually just hide those elements. So just hide elements. Okay, so you might be tempted to just hide even generic elements, but some things might be modeled as generic elements, and they're really important to show in sections. So just because of that, I suggest you don't. Okay, the next thing is to take care of all of the joint conditions here in our in our section. So for that, I'm going to turn off this thin lines, just so we can get these thick lines, so we can see where do we need to play around with joint conditions. So for example, here between this wall and this roof, I need to go to the modify tab, go to join, and let's join those two. So we lost that thick line between those two. Same thing goes here. I'm just going to join these two, join everything to the wall, join everything to this floor, and then join this floor to the other floor. So you need to kind of play around with these joints just to make sure that the thick lines are going all the way around, and then inside of these elements there are only thinner lines. Same thing here between this foundation wall and our actual foundation, so we just need to kind of merge those together. Same thing here, merge this as well. Okay, same thing here, and the same thing goes on this side. So let's just join everything together. Okay, looks really nice. Also here you might notice that this kind of thick line, it's the ground line, it's a bit thicker, but that's how it usually is. You might be able to change it, so you can go and select your ground, or just go into VG, so just go VG or visibility graphics, and then try to find site. Okay, site, and then you can make some overrides on that for the landscape in the cut, so you can play around with the lines if you want to change that. In this case, I'm just going to leave it as is. Okay, moving on, let's go. Let's see up here, do we need to adjust some of these joint conditions? So maybe this thing here should be going together. Yeah, there we go. So now the insulation is flowing freely. Let's go here into thin lines. Yeah, that looks decent enough. Now you might be saying that here maybe the insulation would be connected, and yes, it probably would, but we're going to be talking about that a bit later. But what I would like to fix is, as you can see over here, if we go here, you can see this is our structural material is going all the way up to our wall, and in this case it isn't because we have this insulation. So what we need to do is we need to adjust the footprint of this roof to go up to the structural part of the wall. So I'm just going to go into edit boundary, and to edit it, let's try going to roof level. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, I think this will work. So it's going to want to kind of snap to the center line of the wall, but you don't want that. You want to go with align, and then align it here with this line. There we go. We can lock it in place, hit finish. Now hopefully when I go back to my section here in the project browser, yeah, as you can see now it's going all the way to our structural element of part of the wall, and now it looks a lot better. It looks like it's connected, and the warm insulation is always on the outside. Okay, so this looks decent enough. Let's go turn off thin lines. Okay, here you might want to join these, join this as well. There we go. Now this is going to go all the way through to the floor, so just make sure that if that's something you want to have. So do you want your structural material to go all the way to the structural material of the floor here? Now in this case I do want that because these buildings are usually built like that, and this is like a full brick wall, so it's going to be resting not on the insulation but all the way down on the concrete. Okay, talking about concrete, usually your foundation is going to be, well, it's going to be built out of concrete. Okay, let's just join this as well. Okay, so everything is going to be modeled from concrete, and in this case we have this ugly hatch that's for all of concrete over here, and I don't really like it. I think it looks terrible. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select one of these elements, preferably this here wall, because it's just one material. So when I go into edit type, into structure, we only have that concrete cast in place. Now if I open that dialog up, here we're going to get our material browser, and here we can play around with this. So for the surface pattern, I'm going to, let's just leave it as is, but for the cut pattern, that's where we want to play around. So I want to go with the diagonal crosshatch. I always like to do the thinnest one possible, just because it looks a lot better in my opinion. And here for the background, I'm just going to go with a solid, of course, with some, maybe this darker gray. Let's see what that looks like. So if I hit apply, okay, again, apply, okay. So yeah, it looks a bit better. This is a lighter gray, this is darker gray, but it might be a bit too dark. So let's go here into edit type, let's go into edit, and here preferably make this just a tad lighter, just like that. Maybe a bit more. Okay, hit apply. Okay, apply. Okay, and there we go. It's a bit lighter, I guess. Okay, so we've got our concrete down here, we've got our concrete up here, and it all looks nice for now. Now let me share with you a dirty little industry secret. These flat roofs, well, they're not actually flat. All roofs have to have some sort of a slope to take the water away. So in this case, we need to add a slope. Now, when you select a flat roof, you're going to notice that here you have options for modifying roofs, and you have sub-elements, and you can add a point or a split line, or you can pick a support. Now, the picking of a support isn't really necessary for basically this roof, because as you can see, it looks something like this, and we don't really need that. What we need is to add a split line so we can kind of get an angle over here. But before we can do that, we need to add a variable layer. So if I go here into edit type, and if I go into edit, here we have our layers. This is what we've created for our flat roof, and here we have this option for a variable layer. So that means that this will be a layer that can have a varying thickness. So I'm just going to check variable for my structural layer, because that's concrete, and that's the one where I can most easily get that variation and that slope. So I'm just going to hit OK, apply, OK again. And now I'm going to go into, perhaps my 3D is the best option. Go here and let's add a split line. So I'm just going to go from this point over here and just make sure to keep it at 90 degrees, and let's attach it over here. Click, and let's go to modify to exit out of that. Okay, now to add the actual slope, I'm going to orbit to the other side now and go here into modify sub-elements, and now I can select this point over here and go into this number. So if you haven't seen that, so just click here on this number. It's kind of difficult to see because of the shadow, but when I keep moving around there, you can see that little 0. So when I click on it, I can actually type in a number. Also, what you can do is just select the whole side and go here and type in a number. So I'm just going to type in 10 centimeters on this side. Now this side is going to be a bit more difficult. So what I'm going to do is, let's see, can we select these elements? Okay, there we go. And here, oops, I accidentally moved it. So let's reselect it. Go here and go with 10 centimeters, and then here we're going to add something like, I don't know, like 5 for half. Okay, now it looks a bit weird over here because this is at one height, this is in the other, and here we have just a flat because it's a straight run, so it might be a bit different. So you try to make it look as legit as possible. So once this is finished, I'm going to go here into the section, and as you can see, we have that slope, and it's all in this layer. And now if I go here and measure, and let's go to the center point that's over here, and if I just measure the height of this layer, you're going to notice that it's like 16 centimeters, which is the actual height that we set up. So by adding just height at the edges is going to have our basically our concrete slab be the minimum thickness of 16 as we set up here in our structure. So it's 16, so it kept that 16 here in the kind of the thinnest part, and that's why we increased it on the edges. So if you were to just select the middle line and make it lower, it would kind of mess it all up. So I said, or it might make it smaller. So I suggest you always go on the outside and adjust those outside sides. But anyway, in the end, we have this great sloping flat roof. Okay, now it's time to add some insulation to our section. So to do that, it's basically the same approach as we did for the previous one. So I'm just going to go here into annotate, and here just go with insulation. Let's go with near side. 15 centimeters is already selected. I'm just going to go into thin lines. Okay, we should go the other way around. So let's go from here. There we go. All the way up here. Now here it's going to go up to this part, but it's not. Okay, let's retry that. So let's select this, edit type, edit, and the thermal layer is 20 centimeters. So here I need to readjust. So go insulation, go with 20. And here near side, and then you go up to this point over here, then you go from this point to, well, can we go to the other side? Yeah, looks good. Okay, same thing here. We need to just, let's measure this thing. So this thing is 20 as well, so I'm just going to go and do regular insulation, just do far side or near side, and go from this point all the way down here. Now I'm not going to go all the way down, as you can see that it kind of escapes a bit, so let's just attach it here and finish off there. Okay, so now to complete the walls, let's go with 15 near side, and let's go with from, I don't know, from here. So you kind of have to play around to fit your insulation the best way possible. Let's go from here down to the window. Oops, it kind of went off to the side, so you can select it and try to recenter it a bit using the arrow keys. Okay, let's go back into insulation, 15 near side, and let's do this one. And finally, let's do one for the floor. I think the floor is 20 as well, so you can either go here into measure and then measure the actual layer, or you can select the slab or the whole floor, go into edit, and here, as you can see, the thermal layer is 20. Okay, insulation, and let's go with 20. Let's go with near side, and then we have to go from the other side. There we go. Let's go up to this wall. There we have a gap, and then up to the other side. Okay, looks good. So now we have insulation in our section. One more thing before we move on from this section, and that's, I would like to talk about the earth over here. So you're probably thinking, okay, we have earth, that's the ground, that's this thing over here. But usually the ground isn't the same. So let me explain a bit better. So when you're building a house, you have to dig out some of the ground so you can place the foundation. As you can see here, this concrete slab on the bottom is below the ground level. So you're doing a bit of cutting or digging of ground, and then you're adding back ground in particular places. So for example, here below this, where you dug out the trench for your concrete foundation, and over here, so in those places you're going to be adding some of that ground back, or some of that dirt or earth back. So that's a bit of a different earth. So architects like to represent it in a bit of a different way, just because you don't want to, you want to represent the earth that has settled naturally and the ones that has been kind of placed later on by humans, because it's a different structure of earth, I guess. So you want to represent that in your sections. So for that, I'm going to go here to the annotate view, and here we have our region tool, or filled region tool. So I can go here to filled region, and then I basically created here using these tools, and then here we decide on a hatch in our properties panel. So I'm going to go here with a series of rectangles. So one is going to be like that, one is going to be like that. So around these footings, just do this, just because that's usually how they dig out the trench for the whole foundation, and then they fill part of it with concrete, and they do the wall, and then the rest of it kind of goes like this. So let's do this up to the ground level. So let's attach that here. Okay, there we go. And for the type of hatch that I want to use, let's see what we have. So do we have a vertical hatch? Okay, we do. Let's just go into edit type just to see what we have. So it's this thing, but I'm just going to go with vertical 1.5 millimeters, as I think it would be a bit better presented over here. So just go OK, apply, OK, hit OK, and there we go. And now I have those lines. And of course, if we change the scale to 1/50 or something like that, this will look even better, or we'll have more lines. Same thing goes here with this diagonal crosshatch. Okay. Now, one more thing is how you want to display all of your elements. So here I have this tree, also I have these windows, doors, stuff like that. So for my doors and windows, as well as this tree over here, I would like it to be in halftone or in some sort of gray, because usually you're just trying to represent the stuff that's actually being cut, and you're just adding a bit more elements as context. So for that, just because that's how I like to do it, I'm just going to go into the VG dialog and search for doors, turn on halftone, search for windows, let's see, windows, turn on halftone, and do we have some side components? Let's see, landscape project base points. Okay, I'm not really sure what the tree is classified as, so I'm just going to hit apply and OK for now, just for these windows and doors. And for the actual tree, I'm just going to select it. Okay, it's planting, so let's see, VG, let's see, can we find planting? Okay, there we go, planting, and let's turn halftone on that as well. Okay, there we go. Now this is looking really good. Maybe just extend this a bit downward. Looks good. And let's go back to 1 to 100, as that was the original scale. And maybe we can extend this a little bit to move these out of the way a bit. Okay, looks good. Now let's go back to our floor plan for a moment. So I'm going to go here to floor plan, and just looking at it as is, here we have the basic idea that, okay, here we have our car, so that's probably the garage. Here, just looking at the seating, this looks like a living room, this looks like a dining area. This is your kitchen, and here we have 3 bedrooms and a couple of toilets or bathrooms. But usually you don't want to present your floor plans just like this. You want to kind of name your rooms, so it makes more sense. And usually I like to have a dedicated floor plan that's just for that. So I want to have just one floor plan that's going to have, later on we're going to be adding dimensions, it's going to have the furniture, it's going to have all of the wall details, everything like that. But I want to have a separate floor plan that's just for kind of a simple graphical representation of what the disposition of rooms within this house is. So that's what we're going to be doing right now. So for that, let's create a new floor plan, and we're going to be just duplicating this one. So just right click, go duplicate view, and you have a couple of options. So you have this duplicate and duplicate with the detailing now, or also duplicate with dependent, but as a dependent. But for now, let's just look at these 2 options. So if I just hit the duplicate, it's going to duplicate only the view. So I'm only going to have 2 of the same floor plans. But if I go here, duplicate with the detailing, it's going to take the detailing as well. So what's detailing? Well, detailing is all of those lines like these bathing insulation lines that were added later on and things like that. But in this case, I don't really need that. So I'm just going to right click over here, duplicate view, and let's just duplicate. And there we go, we've got another floor plan, and as you can see, I don't really have that insulation batting lines. And actually what I'm going to be doing is just go here and set the level of detail to coarse, so all of my walls go back to like this black representation. I think it's a bit better for this type of a plan. Also, I don't want to see my section, so I'm just going to right click on the section, as well as these here elevations. So just hold the control key, select those as well as trees. I don't think they're necessary for this view, and the grid lines as well. So this should be just a simple floor plan with nothing else on it. So I'm just going to select all of these elements, this one as well, right click, and we have hide in view, hide element, so they're gone. Also, I want to turn off furniture visibility, so just go into VG and find your furniture. Here we go, let's turn that off, hit apply, okay. Now some of these elements are still left, so I have to do those manually, as you can see. So that's a bit annoying, but that's okay, we're going to do that quite quickly because there is not many elements. These are all probably generic elements. Yeah, so if I go to filter, yeah, they're either electrical equipment, generic models, plumbing fixtures, or specialty equipment. So I'm just going to hide those as well. So for hide, you can just right click, or you can go here to the modify tab, and then you have this little kind of light bulb, open up the drop menu and go hide elements. Okay, so everything is gone and we just have an empty area just like this. Also, we've got these 3 cupboards. Let's take care of those as well. So for this one, let's just select those and hide those as well. Okay, now finally we have an empty house. So now we can play around with the rooms tool. So here we have these rooms options, and what I want to do with these rooms is I want to do a bit of a separation right now before I start adding rooms, because as you can see over here we have one giant area. Just looking at the floor plan, there are no walls dividing the kitchen, the dining area, the entrance, and our living room, and usually those are separated elements. So what I'm going to be doing is just using the room separator tool to add lines that are going to be dividing these surfaces. So just go here to room separator, and it's just as simple as just drawing lines. So just one line like this to separate this. Let's separate the entrance, and let's separate perhaps the kitchen over here. Oops. Yeah, okay, that works. Okay, just make sure that they're going all the way through the walls. Okay, looks good. Okay, so this now looks good. So we have our little entrance area. Actually, the entrance area, maybe we can move it. Oops, it kind of locked to that wall. So let's undo that. Let's detach it, move it here. Yeah, maybe this can be the entrance, this can be the dining area, and this the kitchen. Okay, so everything looks pretty alright right now. So if I go ahead and just start adding rooms, you're going to get those rooms. So here we go, room. And for the first one, let's go with the living room. Just place it here. Then let's go with the dining area, the kitchen, the entrance, the garage, room 1, room 2, room 3. Also here we have this kind of a common area, we have this storage area, and we have a couple of our bathrooms. Now I'm just going to place one within this bathroom. I'm not going to place one here. I'm going to be talking about that a bit later on. Okay, so let's hit escape a few times. Also, you can create this the whole outside area as a room. So if you go here to room, and if you go to place, as you can see, it's not going to recognize that. But what you can do is go again with the room separator tool, go from here and just follow the outline. So go from there all the way here and finish off here. And now if you go with the room, as you can see, it's going to recognize that as a room. The reason for this is I like to have that just to have an area from that, just to get what's the area of this. So if you hover over this X sign and select it, you're going to get the area of that outside, outside area. Also here for this room, we get the area of that room, and the same thing goes for the rest of these. So if I go to the garage, if you find that X, let's see, there we go. So the garage is 25 square meters. But here in the bathroom we have a problem. So if I hit tab a few times, there we go. This is the only room. This isn't a room. So I want to connect these two, but I still want to have my wall over here. So what I'm going to do is just select this wall, and here if we scroll, we have this room bounding option. And if I uncheck that and hit apply, and if I go again and find this room symbol, there we go. Now this whole thing is a room, and it's a bit larger. Now it's 5 square meters. So there we go. Just by hitting that that room bounding and deselecting that, that's going to keep this wall as is, but the room bounding properties of that wall, well, they're going to be eliminated. Okay, so this looks decent enough. The only problem is they're all called room, which is bad. So let's call this one living room. Let's call this garage. This is the water closet. This is the entrance. This is the dining, kitchen. And this I'm going to call, well, let's go with starting from this one. Let's call this one room 1, this one room 2, and this one room 3. Usually bedrooms, they're called, well, rooms, as you probably know, if you or bedrooms, but let's call them just rooms. And here, well, let's just call this hall. And this one is bathroom. And this can be storage. Okay, I think I've named all of them. Yeah, and this will be outside. Outside area, let's call it, just like that. Okay, so now once we have this, now we can add some hatches and create a diagram. So for that, you need to go here to annotate, and here we have this color fill, and we have a color fill legend. Now if we start that and we just click over here, it's going to start a new color fill legend. And here we can either categorize spaces or rooms, and for the color scheme you're going to go with just by name. So it's going to use the names to make the different, like to add different colors. So if you just click name, hit OK, there we go. We've got our color fill legend. We can just place it where we want it. So for example, let's go over here, and yeah, there we go. That's how it's going to look. So we've got our rooms, and I'm trying to figure out the way, like the numbering, but I'm guessing it's going from the dining area. Yeah, it has a weird kind of weird way of numbering these or putting these in order, and you can always go and edit this color scheme. So you can go here and just change the colors, or you can even go with fill patterns, so it doesn't have to be the solid fill. You can use one of those fill patterns that you have in Revit. But I'm going to leave it as is. I'm quite happy with these colors. Maybe you can play around with them if you want. So I'm just going to hit OK, and there we go. We've got one floor plan that's just this. And the best part about this, you can get the areas out of it by creating schedules, and we're going to be talking about those schedules a bit later on in this course. One more thing that I would like to show you what you can play around with is these, for these rooms, if you select the tag, or if you select actually the little X around, you get here the area. And if you just select the tag, then you get just the information on the tag. But as you can see, I don't really like the fact that this tag is so large. So here in the bathroom, it's a bit too large, and here in the hall, it can't really fit as well as in the storage area. So I want to change that. So for that, what I can do is go here into Edit Family, and here what opens up is this little tag family. So I can just select the room name and just drop it down a bit. Also, I got this area tag part, so this is weird. This is something that I didn't know I had. So what I can do is just bring this a bit above. So what I want to have is this all just a bit closer together. So maybe this room, and also if I can select everything, I'm just going to drop it down. So it's currently 3 millimeters, but let's drop it down to 2 millimeters. I think it will look a bit better. Yeah, it's a bit smaller, it's easier to read, and it will look a lot better. Okay, so now that I played around with this tag, let's load it into the project, override the existing version, and as you can see, it looks a lot better. Actually, maybe the text should be a bit higher, but let's first talk about the area of the room. So what I can do is just select this one of these tags, go here into Edit Type, and here we have Show Area or Show Volume. I don't really care about volume, nobody does, but area, that's really important, so I'm just going to turn that on. And there we go. Okay, so what I see over here is that it's this little kind of bound box is messing up the room as well as this area. So if I go over here, yeah, I can't really turn that off. So what I'm going to do is just select, go into edit family again, or go here because it's already opened up. And I'm just going to move this a bit up and this a bit down. Oops, I want to move both of those. And actually, I just want to select everything and maybe make it 2.5. Maybe this is a bit too small. So 2.5 millimeters. Hit apply. Okay. Now let's move this up. These two, let's move down. Okay. Load in. Override. Okay, looks a lot better. So now we have both the area as well as the name and the numbering of each room or each area of the house. So maybe I can move this over here. I really like the fact that I actually have the whole area out here in my floor plan. So let's move this up a bit. And you can also play around with these colors. As you can see, these dark colors are kind of overpowering the actual numbering, so you might want to go and change those. Actually, only this blue one. So I'm just going to select the room fill legend, and just that blue one, just make it just a tad lighter. Hit apply. Okay, there we go. Now we can see here we have storage and it's 3 meters. Okay, there we go. And if you want to be more precise, that's one of those things that you need to edit in your units. So just type in UN and here go to area, and then you can add decimal places. So we can add 1 decimal place, for example. Hit OK. And there we go. So this is now 27.5. So if you want to be a bit more accurate, then I suggest you add those decimal places, or just 1 or 2 decimal places, and then you're going to have a more accurate dimensions for these for these room labels. Let's go back now to our regular floor plan, and maybe before that let's rename this one. So let's go into just rename, and let's call it a room diagram. Okay, let's go back to our floor plan. Okay, so here's our floor plan. Wow, looks like way less colors than here. Okay, so now for this, I like to add some structural elements to this thing. Now, this is not a Revit structural tutorial, so don't worry, we're not going to go too much in depth into those structural elements, but I like to kind of include some parts. So, for example, as I said over here, this is going to has these here grid lines, and they basically mean that the room that this thing is kind of spanning in this direction. So all of the floors are spanning from one grid to another. So that's how the structure is set up in this building. But what I like to add here in the walls is the actual structural elements. So this wall has this basically some sort of a block. If I go here into edit type, go into structure, what we placed in is a masonry block. Now usually masonry block is it's great for structure, but you would like to add a more solid material, something like concrete or reinforced concrete. So for those, I'm going to add some structural elements in form of basically you want to have columns in important places in this floor plan. So what I'm going to do is go here to structure, go to column, and let's say project while we're there. Okay, so for columns, it only gives us this steel column, and usually in this residential building like this, and at least in regulation in my country, you're not going to use a regular steel column, you're going to use a concrete column. So I'm going to go here into load family, and let's search for a structural column or structural framing, or columns. Do we have columns? Yes, we do. Okay, columns. Let's go with concrete, and let's try to find a square column, open up, and there we go. So we've got this one that's 300 by 300, and if we open up the drop menu, that's the smallest one. But actually, this being such a small residential building, I really only need a 200 by 200 millimeter column. So let's go here into edit type, and let's create a new one. So just duplicate, and yeah, let's delete the number 2. So it should be 200 by 200. Hit OK, so we got a new one, and here for the side it's 20. Hit OK, and there we go. And here it's concrete, and just make sure that it's that same concrete cast in place that we've already created our hatch for when we were in section playing around with the foundation of the building. So let's just hit OK. Zoom in over here and try to place it here and try to align it with the center of the core. Maybe go into 10 lines. Yeah, so it should fit something like this. And before you click, make sure that here on the modify tab you've got everything set up correctly. So it should basically be going height, so it should be going from the floor plan up to, let's go up to roof level, and then let's attach it over here. So as you can see, it's snapping to the center line of the core. That's exactly where you want to place it. So just go like that, and it's also snapping to our grid line. So place one there. Maybe we can have one here in the corner, just like that. Okay, looks good. Maybe do one here and one on the end of this wall. And one over here. Actually, let's select this one and move it here to the end of this wall. I think it's a better spot. And if you can't align it perfectly, use the align tool. So just AL is the shortcut. Find this. You can lock it in place if you want. Okay, so we've got those columns there on this grid. Let's go back to our column. Also, you can use the CL shortcut for columns. So let's place some here, one here, one on the other side, and then we can place a few in the middle. What I'm going to do is just do 2 of these for now, and then what I can do is go with the dimensions. So DI is the shortcut for that. Go here, select one of those, select the second one, select the third one, select the final one, move it out, hit EQ, and there we go. Now they are at equal distances. Now, this being a small residential building, I'm not going to talk too much about this, basically this construction part, but yeah, that's how you set it up. And now I'm just going to delete this dimension line. Now, if you hit unconstrain, it's going to remove the constraint, but I want to keep the constraint and just remove the actual dimension line. But if you select one of these columns, you're going to notice that here we have the constraint is still on. Okay, let's move on. So we've got these 2 grid lines all set up. So let's go back into our column. Let's do one here, one here. Same thing on the other side. One there, one here. You can do one here in the corner. And yeah, let's do the other one over here. So you just align it just by using this kind of blue line that's going to help you align everything correctly. There we go. And maybe try to align with this one if it fits. Okay, there's a window there, so let's maybe move it over here to this wall. Okay, so we've got all of these columns. Let's add just one more, perhaps over here. And there we go. That looks good. So we've got these structural columns in place, and they're holding everything, holding our whole building in place, and it looks a lot better when you have those structural columns at these certain places. The whole floor plan looks a lot better and a lot more thought through. What you can also do is you can add some beams, some concrete beams up in the roof level. So you can go here to roof level. Okay, once in roof level, you can go to beam. Now here again we have just the steel beam, so you can go here into load family, go back a few folders, structural framing, and let's go with concrete. Let's go with a regular one, open it up. Okay, so the smallest one is again 300 by 600, that's way too large. So for a small residential building, let's duplicate this one and let's go with 200 by, I don't know, something like 300, something really small. Okay, hit OK, and then this will be 20, and this will be 30. Okay, hit OK again, and let's place it at roof level. Make sure that the 3D snapping is off so it doesn't accidentally mess something up, and then we can start placing it. So let's go from the center of this column all the way to the other side. So that's one. Second one should go from the center of this column all the way to the other side. Do one over here that's going from center of this column all the way to this side, and the final one should be going here. There we go. Now you can't really see that now, but if we go here into our section, should be visible here. Let's see, is it? Okay, here as you can see we can select it, but we can't really see it very well. In this case I think it's because it's cutting through the concrete. Yeah, our section is cutting through the concrete. Here you can see it, but it's a bit high up. So what we can do is perhaps go here into modify tool. Let's go with join, or maybe even cut. Let's try to cut the wall with this, or we can't do that. Let's try joining. There we go. Now if we go to join, it appears over here. Now in this case the roof might be a bit too low, so what you can do is just select the whole wall. Let's go into filter. Okay, I don't want the wall selected. I just wanted the insulation batting line as well as the roof. Hit apply, okay, and just by using the arrow keys maybe extend it just a little bit so this this column or this beam stays here, and then we can select this batting line and extend it a bit. Same thing here, extend it a bit. So there you go, that's how easy it is to change these. And here we go, here we have that that structural part. Okay, same thing here, it's just the floor, the roof is resting on it. And the same thing here, but here as you can see we're kind of cutting through the beam, so it doesn't look very well. Let's go back into the floor plan and perhaps, yeah, let's unconstrain this. So what I can do is go here to reveal constraints so I can see that constraint. Let's delete it for now. Let's go back and let's just move it out of the way just a little bit. So I'm just moving it out of the way a little bit. And as you can see, it's for some reason it's not cutting through the wall. So what you need to do is go here to join. So you just join the wall with this, and now it's cutting through the wall. Same thing here. And now if I go back into my section, now I can go here again to join. And there we go, we can see that structural element. Also, maybe, just maybe, thinking out loud here, you might want to select this roof and give it a base offset just for the height of this here layer. So if I go to measure, that's 1 centimeter. So I'm just going to select it, give it a -1 offset. So now it's entering this thing, so I can join it up with that, and now it's properly connected and the concrete is actually going there. And actually in this case you might want to insert the whole roof into the wall, and then the structural elements would be overlapping. So that's something you can do as well. But for now it actually looks quite good. Looking at this section, now that we have these structural elements, it actually looks a lot better. Actually, let's now fix this part over here. I would like this concrete to end up on top of this concrete beam. Same thing goes over here. I want this concrete to go inside of the wall. Usually that's how it would be. So to fix that, I'm just going to go into edit footprint, and let's go into our roof level for that. Just make sure that it's a floor plan and not a reflected ceiling plan. So just hit open. And once here, I'm just going to move this all the way to the center line between the line between the wall, the structural element and the insulation, and just do the same thing here. And the same thing just on all sides. So just zoom in and move it to the outside. You can lock it in place if you want. You don't really have to if you're not going to make any additional changes to the design. Here, now in this, at this wall, you need to move it to the outside. Now the only the reason for that and the only difference is the fact that here the wall is looking towards the outside. So here the insulation is on the outside, but here the insulation is on the inside, and the structural part is over here. Now you can't see it because this is now in course, but if we were to go to fine, There we go. So as you can see, it's over here. But actually, when I zoom in over here, we have that 1 centimeter of the gypsum wallboard. So I don't want that. So I'm just going to move it over here to this part. So just be careful when aligning this line, just to make sure that you're within the structural part. So here, just up to the gypsum, and here up to the insulation. So just go to that line. There we go. Yeah, that's correct. Okay, so this is, I think now it's completed. So just hit finish, and just to check it out, let's go into our section, and perfect. There we go, looks perfect. So here we have some problems. We need to join these two because you're not going to first put your beam and then some gypsum and then the other concrete slab. So just go here to join and join your beam with this, and then it looks, well, perfect. And just make sure you attach this to that. Yeah, everything looks correct. This is already attached. Here we have to attach this to that. And yeah, I'm really happy with the way this turned out. Now the concrete is over here. Here we have our beams. Yeah, looks perfect. And here we have this beam as well. And here we have the roof. Now the roof, we're going to be covering that in the next course, but we're going to be actually adding the whole structure of the roof as well. Let's see. Yeah, I think it looks good in all angles. And also here, just double check the concrete. Everything looks all right, and everything is where it should be. Now looking at this section here, if you go here to the living room area, you're going to notice that we have this kind of a sloped roof over there, and it really looks quite nice for the living room area. But if I go here to the floor plan, you're going to notice that that sloped roof is not only above the living room, but also the garage and the bathroom. Okay, it might look cool in the garage, but above the bathroom it's a bit silly to have that sloped roof. And for the garage, I actually want to have a ceiling so I can add some lights, and also maybe the above the ceiling area can be used as some sort of storage or something like that. So just because of that, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be adding a ceiling above this car in the garage and also above the bathroom. And that's pretty much the only place in this house that I'm going to add a ceiling at. And then for the rest, we're going to have just a regular ceiling that we already have from the roof. Okay, so for that, let's go here in the reflected ceiling, reflecting ceiling plan, and I'm going to go to the floor plan. Here we go. And now what I'm going to be doing is just go here to architecture, and here we have our ceiling. And for ceiling, we have a few of these. Now the generic one is just a flat line, so I'm not going to be using that one. And for the grid ones, I can, or you can use this one that's like the GWB on metal stud, but I'm going to just go with a 600 by 600 millimeter grid. So for the height offset, it's at 260 right now. Let's just keep to 60 for now, and we can play around with that a bit later on. So I can use the automatic ceiling or sketch ceiling, but I like what the automatic ceiling is offering. And because this wall is not room bounding, it's going straight to that wall, and here we have it here in the garage. Okay, and to take a look at that, to see what that looks like, what we can do here in the reflected ceiling plan, we can go here with our section, and let's create a section cutting through that. I'm just going to flip it to the other side so we can see the rest of the house, and let's open up that section. Also, let's go here with fine detail level so it looks a bit better. Okay, here we have a house, a tree that's kind of in the way, but that doesn't really matter, but here we go. If you look at this, here you can see the living room has that higher ceiling, and that goes all the way to the roof, and here we have this ceiling set in place. Now here you can see it's going kind of to the garage door, and that's probably not that good. So, or this garage door here is where it rolls up, so that's not good. So I'm just going to select this ceiling, this one as well, and set the height offset. Let's go with 280, a bit more, maybe 290. There we go, looks good. So now we have some area above the ceiling where we can use as storage or something like that, and here it's above the car, and we don't really have to have that sloped ceiling above the car. Car isn't really going to mind that much. And it's nice to have this ceiling that actually has a bit of thickness, so it looks a bit better. Here we have some sort of finish material, and if we go to edit type and here into edit structure, you can actually set up the structure as well as the finish material for that ceiling. Now I'm happy with the default one. I'm not going to mess around too much with that ceiling, but that's just how you set it in place. And also with the walls, usually you're going to be placing the ceiling between the walls, and if these basically interior walls, if they are kind of thick and have some sort of structural material like brick, usually you would have the ceiling go around the wall. And if it's a light wall, like just a gypsum construction and just gypsum on some sort of aluminum construction or some sort of like steel framing or something like that, then you might have ceiling first and then the interior wall goes up to the ceiling. But that's mostly for office buildings. For residential buildings like this one or houses, usually you're going to have your ceilings between the walls, and the walls are a bit thicker. Okay, so that looks quite nice as well. Okay, and then in the next week's course, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be covering the topic of dimensioning, and also we're going to be finishing up that roof. So we have some roof construction over here, and then also a lot more cool stuff and advanced stuff. So we've covered most of the beginner stuff in the first course, and then the second and the third one are quite advanced, and we're going to be moving on with advanced topics as well in the upcoming courses. So that's pretty much it for this course. Stay tuned for the next one, which will be coming up next Tuesday. Thank you for listening to this one, and I'll see you in a week. Bye.